For $400, a farm store will sell you a submersible well pump with a stainless steel housing, a 3-year warranty, and an electric motor built in Indiana. For $1,200, a supply house will sell you a pump wearing a name every plumber in America recognizes, carrying a 1-year warranty, and there is a very good chance the motor inside it was built in the same Indiana town by the same company. That company is Franklin Electric. It does not put its name on most of the pumps its motors end up inside, and that is not an accident. This video names 7 well pump brands that professionals buy and homeowners walk straight past. Most people watching have heard of one of them, maybe 2. The 7th one does not plug into anything, and it is the entire reason this video exists. More than 43 million Americans, roughly 15% of the country, drink water that comes up out of a private well. No utility, no crew on call, just a motor hanging somewhere between 50 and 500 feet underground, and when it quits, the house quits. The average replacement runs about $1,900, and between $250 and $1,000 of that is labor alone, because before anybody can diagnose the thing, somebody has to haul hundreds of feet of pipe and wire back up out of a 6-inch hole. So here is the part nobody explains on the sales floor. A residential submersible is not one product, it is 2. There is the pump end, the stack of impellers and diffusers that physically moves the water, and there is the electric motor that spins it. Those 2 halves are routinely built by 2 separate corporations in 2 separate factories, married together on an assembly line, and sold under a third company's name entirely. Franklin Electric was founded in 1944 in Bluffton, Indiana, by Ed Schaefer and Wayne Kehoe. Schaefer patented the 4-inch submersible motor in 1950, and that patent became the shape of the entire industry. The Hydraulic Institute estimates Franklin motors turn up in roughly half the water wells on Earth. Because every 4-inch motor is built to the same mounting standard, a Franklin motor bolts directly onto pump ends made by companies that compete with Franklin, which means the most expensive and most failure-prone component in your well can be physically identical across 3 pumps sitting at 3 completely different prices. If this is the kind of thing nobody mentions until the truck is already in the driveway, subscribe, because that is what every video on this channel does. Here is where it turns. Franklin's own warranty on those motors is 1 year from installation, or 2 years from date of manufacture, whichever runs out first. A well pump is expected to last 8 to 15 years. Search for that warranty, and you will find dealers across the internet advertising 5 years. That number does not appear anywhere in Franklin's primary warranty document. It appears in marketing, and the coverage gets sliced finer than most buyers ever notice. Grundfos covers its stainless submersible line for 2 years, and the only route to 5 is buying an extended plan. Zoller runs 3 years on its professional pumps, but the retail version sold under its at-home line carry 1. Redline gives you 3 years on a submersible and 1 year on a jet pump. County Line splits it exactly the same way. Everbilt ranges anywhere from 1 to 3 depending on which box you happen to pull off the shelf. Now look at whose names those actually are. County Line is Tractor Supply's house label, and the address printed inside its own product manuals is Wright Street in Delavon, Wisconsin, which is Pentair and Flowtech. Everbilt belongs to Home Depot and is built by third-party contract manufacturers it declines to name. Utilitech is Lowe's, and Red Lion is Franklin Electric's own budget line, sold by the same company whose motor sits inside the premium pump you were about to pay triple for. Pentair even sells a line of electric pumps under the name Air Motor, which has nothing whatsoever to do with the Air Motor windmill company still building in San Angelo, Texas. Same word on the box. Completely different company, which is why the first 2 names on this list are the 2 nobody respects. County Line submersibles are stainless, built around a floating stack impeller design meant to survive sand, and they carry 3 years, which is longer than Franklin covers its own motors. Red Lion is Franklin's value line, which means you are buying the motor company's hardware without paying for the badge somebody else wrapped around it. Neither one is a status purchase. Both are honest equipment priced as though you are not funding an advertising budget. But the two names after these are the reason well contractors keep a supply house account in the first place. The third name has been building pumps in Kendallville, Indiana since 1866. Flint and Walling was founded by Simeon Flint and David Walling and is still the oldest manufacturer in that town. Its star windmills once stood across the American countryside. Masco bought the company in 1971 and in the year 2000 sold it to a family-owned pump company out of Kentucky. That new owner did something almost nobody in American manufacturing does anymore. It moved motor production back from Mexico to Indiana, then funded an entirely new 4-inch submersible motor introduced in 2014 after field testing, which makes Flint and Walling the only pump company in the United States building its own submersible motors, its own jet pump motors, and its own centrifugal motors. Everyone else buys them. That distinction sounds like trivia until something breaks. When a pump company builds its own motor, there is exactly one company to call, and exactly one company that can be held responsible for the answer. When it buys the motor from somebody else, a failure turns into an argument between two corporations over whose half went bad, and the homeowner stands in the middle of it holding a well cap and a dry faucet. About 150 people work there in a plant of roughly 205,000 square feet. You will not find it in a big box aisle. You find it at a supply house or through the contractor who already knows. The company that bought it is the fourth name. Zoller began in 1939 when August Zoller, called Pop by everyone who knew him, built 6 pumps in his basement in Louisville, Kentucky. It is still on Cane Run Road. It is still owned by the same family. In May of 2024, Bill Zoller took over as chief executive from John Zoller, who had held the job 22 years, putting the 4th generation in charge. Zoller states that 90% of its products are made in the United States. And this is not some boutique operation trading on nostalgia. Industry figures put annual revenue around $269 million, with several hundred people in Louisville and roughly 1,000 worldwide. It owns Flint and Walling in Indiana, Wolf Pump in Abernathy, Texas, Lincoln Industries in Boonville, Indiana, and Tulsa up in Canada. It simply never bought shelf space, which is the only reason you have never heard the name unless a contractor already put one in your basement. And there is one detail that explains the company better than any spec sheet could. Plant leadership has been asked why they refuse to add a second shift. The answer is that it is a family business, and they do not want people working nights. The 5th name is not American at all, and it earns its place anyway. Grundfos was founded in 1945 by Poul Du Jensen in Bjerringbro, Denmark, and it is not owned by shareholders. It is owned by a foundation. Around 19,000 employees build more than 16 million pumps a year. That ownership structure is not a technicality. A foundation-owned manufacturer answers to a charter instead of to a quarterly earnings call, and you can see where the money ends up going. The company arrived in America in 1973 and opened its first United States plant in Fresno, California in 1977. Its American headquarters is now Brookshire, Texas, opened in 2022, and it has broken ground on a 143,000 square foot expansion there, with production expected in late 2027. The United States has become its single largest market, roughly 1/5 of everything the company sells. 80 years on, and the growth money is still going into buildings. So that is 5 brands, 3 countries, and a lot of stainless steel. And none of it is what is actually going to kill your pump. Short cycling is. Short cycling means the pump snaps on and off in rapid bursts instead of running steady cycles, and every one of those starts lands like a hammer strike on the motor. One well service company states the damage plainly. Rapid cycling can take a pump expected to run 10 to 15 years and finish it in months. Frequent cycling routinely cuts a 15-year pump down to 3 to 5, and in roughly 70% of cases, the cause is not the pump at all. It is a failed or waterlogged pressure tank sitting in a basement that nobody has looked at in a decade. Sizing finishes the job. An undersized pump runs continuously and cooks itself, and the motor may give you 2 or 3 years instead of 8 to 15. An oversized pump outruns the well's own recovery rate, pulls air, and cycles itself apart. Groundwater standards call for the tank pre-charge to sit 2 pounds below cut in pressure. Drop a factory tank set at 30 pounds into a 40-60 system and it will destroy itself until somebody corrects it. None of that is a brand problem. All of it is a person problem. The pump you paid $1,200 for and the pump you paid $400 for will both be destroyed by the same waterlogged tank at roughly the same speed, and neither warranty will cover it, because installation and system faults are not defects. A perfect pump, installed wrong, die as young. Which is exactly why the last two names on this list matter, because both are companies where the person answering the phone actually knows the answer. Sun Pumps resumed manufacturing in its original facility in Safford, Arizona in 2001. Solar and direct current pumps ranging from half a gallon a minute up past 2,000, designed and assembled in Arizona. Its stated position is that its products are built to be repaired rather than thrown away. Call the number and an engineer picks up. For a ranch, a remote cabin, or a homestead where running power out to the wellhead would cost more than drilling the well did, that is frequently the only sensible answer on the table, and almost no homeowner ever encounters it because it does not compete for aisle space against anything. And the seventh name does not plug into anything. Bison Pumps was incorporated in 1999 in Holton, Maine by David Harbison Jr., after the ice storm of 1998 left the state without power and a great many well owners without water. 11 employees, about 6,000 square feet. 304 stainless steel, lead-free brass, certified food safe, working at static water levels past 200 feet. Models run $500 to $5,000 and the warranty is lifetime. And in keeping with everything else in this video, Bison has been owned since 2016 by Conway Manufacturing Group in Arkansas, which is worth knowing because that is the entire point. Harbison has said the question he hears most is why anybody would ever buy a hand pump. His answer is that anyone on a private water system can use one because everybody needs water. Which brings this back to where it started. In 2026, a crew in Pennsylvania reported pulling a pump out of a residential well and reading the date code stamped on the motor. 1968. The pump end had cracked open. The motor was still making pressure after nearly 60 years in the ground. So the $400 versus $1,200 question has an answer, and it is not a flattering one. The premium is almost never buying you a better motor. It is buying you a name, a shelf position, and in several cases a shorter warranty than the cheap pump carries. What actually decides whether you get 60 years or 6 is who sized it, whether anyone ever checked the pressure tank, and whether the company behind it still answers the phone. County Line and Red Lion for honest hardware at a farm store price. Flint and Walling for an American motor. Zoller for the family that will not run a night shift. Grundfos for the engineering. Sun Pumps for off-grid. Bison for the weak, the power does not come back. If you would rather know all this before you spend the money instead of after, subscribe, and I will keep pulling these apart.